but this is the main movie, in around the world, I reckon, because Michael Jackson, Devaldo. I mean, come on, man, iconic. Not just forget him for a second, but the music. I mean, come on, Devaldo. You know what, man? I was growing up. For me, Michael Jackson, man, was like this guy was just legendary. Like Billie Jean, Thriller, Smooth Criminal,
Uh,
Beat It,
uh,
Bad.
to this
You know,
day, Thriller
to
is
this day,
still the highest selling album of all time. To this day, still. So
that video, the music video, iconic music
yeah,
videos like Beat It and everything. Like you just seriously, just so many. Don't stop till you get enough. Like those movies.
yeah.
And then that is just him in his solo career. And then even before that, you got the Jackson
Mm,
5, like,
yeah.
all the classic songs that they had is just incredible. So here we are, 2026. We have this biopic directed by Antoine Fuqua, obviously Training Day, Denzel Washington, Oscar winning. He's done the Equalizer movies. We've got the writer on this movie wrote Gladiator. He's
Yeah,
written kind of
John
other.
Logan. Yeah.
He's kind of been nominated for Oscars as well. So for me,
Mm.
behind the scenes, Devaldo, I mean, you got a kind of obviously fantastic people making the movie, and then you got this. Is it? I'm pretty sure it's his debut film, which is Jafar
Jafar
Jackson,
Jackson. I
who's
don't
the
know, you know.
who's the nephew of Michael Jackson.
Mm.
He's Jermaine Jackson's son, and there were moments in the movie Devaldo
Wow, it is his
where
first, you know. It is his first, yeah.
it was just uncanny
Yeah.
how they got the likeness, because obviously sometimes, like, obviously, yeah, that's his nephew, this is Michael Jackson's nephew, so there's going to be a resemblance, but the way there's looks in the movie that he gives, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man, the spitting image of Michael Jackson when he's up on stage, there's a couple of kind of bits that I thought, wow, what a energetic performance and everything. So we will get into that in a second. But before we do that, let's get into kind of where we're at in this whole thing. Where does it start off? Who's this kid, Michael Jackson? Who are the Jackson 5, Devaldo? Where do they start off?
Oh man, well, Michael Jackson was born in Indiana. Indiana is actually where stranger things happen, but there's nothing strange about
Mm.
this. And we know likes a bit of horror. We saw Thriller, so maybe a bit of a link there. But yeah, Indiana, that's where they are. That's where they're from. Massive family. Is it 5 boys and 3 girls? And incidentally, is it 3? Yeah, 3 girls. You'll notice that Janet Jackson wasn't anywhere
Jackson
near
wasn't in it
this. From
anywhere
what I
near
hear,
it.
from what I hear, there's beef in the family.
Yes.
She's
Yeah.
having beef with Jermaine Jackson, who was one of their producers of this
Yes.
film, who's the dad of Jafar Jackson. So anyway, I
Mm.
digress. But yeah, that's where the family's from. What was
Joseph.
his name? Joseph Jackson. Sorry, yeah, Joseph Jackson and Catherine Jackson, mother and father, raised the kids as well as they could. Really, really strict from Joseph Jackson in how he implemented discipline into his boys, who he saw having a talent, especially Michael Jackson, who people just saw him as like, this is a God-given gift. People can
Mm.
sing. Other boys can sing, but he was something else. So
Oh
knowing that
man.
talent, he entered them into competitions, and they got bigger and bigger, got more confident. But he was really, really hard on them. And you'll notice a bit of a pattern there, as with all these successful children. Look at Serena Venus Williams.
Yeah.
Some of their dads. They're really, really tough on them
Mm.
at the point of, okay, something we've got to calm down now. But sometimes
Mm.
people will argue that's how you make a legend.
That's how you
You can't be
push them.
half-hearted. So again, that's up for debate. But if the dad wasn't so hard on him, would we have got the Michael Jackson we know today? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
And you know what I liked about this, in the sense that they didn't shy away from that, because a lot of people say, well, he was a monster.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
the dad, like, the way there's moments in the movie, where, he's obviously, getting his belt
Yeah.
out and, like, not following
I got the
instructions
belt
and
when I
stuff.
was young, a few times. I mean,
Man,
it's
me
different
too.
times now, so it's times have changed. But what I will say is, according to times, we have to change how we do things. But
Mm.
boy, some kids need a belt, man.
I know.
Some of
Bring
these
back the
kids out
belt.
here rioting, yeah, and stabbing each other. Mate.
if there was a bit more, maybe a bit more
Maybe
discipline
not,
in the
but some
household.
discipline. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, I digress. But there's everyone raises their kids differently. As long as you don't,
Mm,
abuse your kids, that's another story. But you're allowed to be firm on your family to make sure that
yeah.
they're raised right and they don't go out of their home and they're not being, crazy. But
Mm,
anyway, so
yeah.
yeah, that's where they are.
Exactly.
Family sort of, musically gifted, coming through, and everyone's noticing them. Michael Jackson's really standing out. His voice, the way he moves, and you can see even when they're recording music, he can't keep still.
No.
He can't keep still, and that's part of it. It's part of the magic that he has. His voice. Some people forget that he started in Motown.
Yes.
Motown, where all the soul
Great.
singers, all the greats. That's where people forget. That's where they started.
Mm,
So
mm. And
yeah,
there's a
the
bit in the
story.
movie. There's a bit in the movie where when he's a young kid. By the way, that young kid who plays the young Michael Jackson, he was
Oh,
great as well.
yeah,
The kid, and everyone basically falls in love with the voice because he's kind of like got
yeah,
this angelic voice and everything.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
so there's a bit in the movie where he's watching. I think he's watching Little Richie or he's watching Smokey Robinson or one of those
okay,
guys, and he's kind of like imitating their dance moves and everything. And
yeah,
even at a young age,
yeah. I think,
Michael Jackson, he had the moves.
yeah, yeah. The feet was shuffling. I think it was
Just shuffling
I think it was James
or
Brown. He was
James
watching the
Brown,
shuffle on
maybe.
the TV. He
Yeah,
was like,
it's
but
mad. Like,
yeah,
to do that at that young age, and there's his dad saying to him, "Look, Michael, stop! Like, don't move,
yeah,
don't move, don't move." But
yeah.
I guess
Can't.
that was his essence. So it starts off in the 1960s, and then we kind of, we move on through the decades, and we see that whole kind of thing where they become chart toppers, they become more and more successful, they become, richer. Joseph, he's obviously laying
Mm,
down the law. And I guess at the heart of the movie, Devado, is this relationship between Michael Jackson and the dad, right? He
yeah,
has this
yeah,
throughout the whole movie.
yeah,
It's, Michael Jackson trying to then become a solo artist and then kind
yeah,
of come out of the shadow from the Jackson Five and then do this whole thing.
yeah.
Um,
And I would say actually that because the relationship between him and the dad obviously has been highlighted. Obviously, I'm sure
mm,
the dad had relationships with everyone, but Michael Jackson, there were definitely times when the dad just crosses the line. I mean, even like verbally like saying, "Oh, you got a big nose."
big nose. Yeah.
That puts a complex in someone's head. No,
Yeah.
no wonder he got his nose,
Mm.
done. So things like that. Sometimes the abuse that's verbal is sometimes worse than physical.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
some
but
when
yeah,
I like over the years, obviously because the Jackson Five and Michael Jackson's kind of as a story has fascinated me, and the stuff that I've read over the years. I
mm.
mean, what we saw in the movie is
Nothing,
nothing compared to
nothing,
the
mate.
abuse
Do
that,
you know why
like,
that is? Because the
because
family are involved in it.
they
Jermaine
can't.
Jackson producing, they're not going to show too much of the controversy. Because
No.
remember, I mean, I don't want to spoil it if anyone hasn't seen it yet. I'm sure you're going to rush out to go and see it. But
Mm,
this film is 2 hours and change, I think, or maybe just under 2 hours. But
mm.
it covers 25%,
Yeah.
even of his music. It doesn't cover so much more.
No. No.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It goes from the 60s to kind of, and we end up in London, in Wembley,
Yeah, I remember that
in
that
night.
that that, that,
I
that
remember.
concert. I
I
wasn't there
remember that.
because I
Oh, me
lived
too.
right around the corner from there, and those days Wembley was a different stadium, so we could
Yeah,
hear anything that happened in Wembley.
I
I remember
know.
opening my window and hearing Michael Jackson
Yeah,
out the window. That's as
I
close as I got. I was like
me
8 years old, I think, at the time
I
when he
know.
was
Yeah,
there.
I was 10 years old. It was 1988, and
Yeah,
back
yeah,
then, it was the biggest thing. It's like, oh my gosh, Michael Jackson's
yeah,
coming to like
yeah,
London. There's going to be a massive
yeah,
thing. I
yeah.
remember in '88 there was a whole big thing about the Bad music video. They showed it
Okay,
on BBC or whatever it was, and I remember like me and my brothers we're getting together. We were like, we got
trying
to
to do
watch
the
the video.
moves. Yeah,
And we got to watch the video. But a young Wesley
yeah,
Snipes
yeah,
is in that video,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like so it was a whole big thing. And then to see obviously the movie go from the 1960s all the way up to the 1980s, this whole relationship, and one with the dad. The only thing that I would probably say is yeah, it does obviously gloss over some of that
Mm.
of the controversy that we know. So at the back of my head, I was thinking, I want to see the stuff about how they made Thriller. I want to see
Oh
the
yeah,
stuff about how they did Beat It and everything. And you
yeah.
get to kind of see all of that. And I think you're absolutely right, Divaldo. They wouldn't have been able to do the controversial stuff. Like there's stuff that I read about where Michael Jackson, when they would go on tour, the brothers would be like shagging like
Yeah,
lots of, and he'd be there.
yeah.
He'd be there in the same room, and they would be like, "Oh, Michael, just go to bed, just go to bed," and he'd be there listening to all of them like having it off,
And he's young, and he's not even
and
supposed to be seeing that. Oh my
he's
gosh,
10
yeah,
years old.
that's. But I think he's also wired a bit different in this film. I think they
Yeah.
also show that he is wired a bit different, not in a bad way,
Mm,
but he's a bit different to the rest of the guys. And sometimes with greatness comes difference, and
absolutely.
that the way he communicates, interacts with people, he prefers to interact with children rather than adults, and
Mm.
you kind of see a little bit, it's just a smidgen of that
Yeah, you
in
see
this.
the
So
bit.
that's quite
Yeah,
interesting.
you see the
Yeah,
bit about obviously like his fascination with animals. That's where the
yeah, yeah.
bubbles turns up. You've got obviously this fascination with obviously with his skin. With the
Yeah,
nose.
vertigo, the condition that
Yeah,
like a light complexion. They showed he's putting his gloves on. He was saying, "No, this helps me with my balances my shade or something." They touched on it a bit in a nice way. It wasn't like
yeah.
wasn't
It was,
bad.
and then obviously we don't get the stuff. What happens like later on down the line,
Uh,
like where
uh,
he's unrecognizable from what he was
yeah,
from,
yeah,
20, 30 years ago and everything.
yeah.
So, um,
There's a
I mean,
documentary actually that's on BBC right now, and it covers
which
that.
I want to
And
watch.
there was a few years gap when no one saw him. And back in
Mm,
those days, there's no social media. If you don't want to be seen,
no.
you won't be seen. And then he came out, and he was a few shades lighter. Do you
Mm,
know what I mean? So that's a massive thing. But also, I want to say this film, this film sometimes felt like a concert. When I
yes.
went to go see the
Oh,
film, there were families in the cinema, families that I know for a fact they would not go to the cinema to watch any other film. And the
yeah.
kids were there. Some of the kids were a bit annoying, crying and all that. There were
Mm,
young girls there that I know weren't even born when he died,
yeah.
but they knew all his songs. He
Yes.
died 16 years, 17 years ago,
Yeah.
2009.
2009.
And these girls were not even 17. I know that, and they were
No.
there. And it's like this was an experience. I noticed
Mm,
as well the volume was high. They
massive.
made sure
Yeah.
that in cinema the volume was high. Sometimes on stage he's singing certain songs. You think, okay, it's going to stop now. No, the
Mm.
whole song
The
is
whole song.
it's like
I,
yeah. So
I
it's an
remember that
experience.
whole I remember that whole kind of in the 1980s that Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson tour thing. I remember watching that
Remember
like
that?
on
Is it?
no.
I
So
don't.
I remember watching it like years later, but
Okay,
that whole thing,
I didn't
and
know about that.
they
I blocked that out.
recreated that.
Mm,
And like the effort that Jafar Jackson goes into,
yeah,
like with the performances and
yeah,
everything, man, I'm telling you, the guy he put in a shift. He puts in a
yeah.
shift.
Yeah, that's his
You
first
know,
film. I just checked IMDb. He's got nothing else. He
nothing
wanted to be
else,
a
right?
golfer when he was younger. He wanted to be a
Jeez,
golfer, but obviously with his family being in music and
yeah.
performance, then this is what's happened. But yeah, he's got nothing else on his IMDb. This is his first film.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And then, so look, a lot of let's speak about the elephant in the room. They don't speak about the controversy that happens afterwards. The movie only
yeah,
covers up until like say from the 60s, to the late 80s when he's doing
yeah,
that Wembley tour, in London. And then some people like I've seen online, they're like, well, what about all the other stuff? And I was like, they wouldn't they're
no,
not going to show that stuff because if you've got
that's
the
weak.
families backing and
Nah,
you've got the
no way.
music,
Yeah,
they aren't going to do that. Interestingly, though, Divaldo, the
yeah.
movie ends and there's a little bit of there's a title, and it says his
The
story
story
continues.
continues. Yeah,
So, what
maybe there
does it
might be a
mean that
second
we're going to
part.
get?
Maybe there might be a second part that then goes further. But again, I don't see it. I don't see it going controversial. Also, watching the documentaries as well, you'll learn that Michael Jackson in his later years was tied to, I think it was Sony, and he had to bring out more albums and more albums.
Mm,
That's what the This Is It tour was
this is
about,
it. Tour
bringing
was
money. So I think those moguls are still tied to this. So the
Mm,
cinema release, the money that comes to the box office, will probably go to those moguls as well. So
yeah,
this film's not going to have any controversy. It's just going to be light, entertaining, and it's going
yeah,
to be fun. Which is you're going to get that. You're going to be tapping your feet. You're going to hear
exactly.
people singing in the cinema. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, there's like I said before, like this bit we see kind of maybe probably me, I would have liked to have seen him and Quincy, him doing
Okay.
with
Yeah.
Quincy Jones, kind of like that collaboration, because that
Yeah.
album, that Off the Wall album,
Oh man.
and that Thriller album, Divaldo,
Uh,
it's iconic, man.
yeah.
The
Off.
hits on that, the Off the Wall, man, seriously, for me is
Yeah.
brilliant. And and then obviously you got Thriller, which we do get to see kind of like the making of the Thriller
Yeah.
video a little bit, and we get all that sort of stuff. So I would love to have probably seen a bit more of that. But if you're looking for performance, man, Jafar's there. I
Yeah.
just don't see how they can make the second one. Like,
Unless they just cover the Bad album, or is it Bad? The next album or next
you're
couple of
bad.
albums. Yeah. So apart from that, they can do the same thing and just not go too deep. I reckon
Yeah,
they could do
because
it.
it was round about the 80s, and like kind of 92, 93 is when you started getting the kind of hearing about
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously the stories and whatnot, and there's all the stuff started to come out. So I guess, yeah, how would they do that? But yeah, for me, if you're looking for kind of like a clean, fun movie
Mm,
and you want a taste of what it was like,
mm.
then
Watch
yeah,
it.
you
Yeah.
to go watch it.
I'm gonna watch it again, like literally soon now.
Yeah.
So
Okay, cool.
yeah, go watch it. Go watch Michael
Yeah,
Jackson.
go watch it. Go watch it.